Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We are going to move right along to our next performance expectation, and we are jumping in by looking at the older ones that we've already done in ecology. So we started this whole thing off with what is it that we need in order to survive in an environment? We looked at abiotic and biotic resources, things that are alive, things that aren't, that we require, for instance, food and water and shelter. Some of it could even just be rocks or the air that we're breathing in, and the effects that those had on the populations within. Now that we know what we need to survive, and we've got our little bunny rabbits out in the field there, we know what they need to be able to survive. The next performance expectation we looked at is the relationships between them. So now we're going to have had you looked at and constructed explanations that predict patterns of interactions among those organisms. We looked at that food pyramid, where basically there's got to be lots of stuff at the bottom of the pyramid, like grasses and vegetation, that the things that eat those grasses can feed on. So if there's more insects than there are grasses, then all of the grass is going to die. The population of insects plummets, the grasses come back, and then some insects will be able to return. But ultimately, there's always going to be more on the bottom than there is above it. Otherwise, the things above it are just going to eat it all. Which brings us to our next performance expectation we're looking at is, now that we know what those pyramids will look like, what happens when things do die? Where does that energy go? So if I once was alive and now I have passed on and moved into the being buried or something, where does the energy from my body end up going? So our next performance expectation is set up right here. And as always, I do want you to think, what is that SEP? What is that cross-cutting concept? See if you can be thinking about that as we read through it. So for 3C, we're going to develop a model to describe the cycling of matter and flow of energy among living and non-living parts of an ecosystem. So we're going to do what we always do, and we are going to break that performance expectation down, looking for the SEP. What are we expected to do? The DCI, what are we doing that to? So what information do we need to do something with? And then that cross-cutting concept is, what is our theme? What specifically am I thinking about while I am doing whatever it is I am doing to this information? So if you don't mind, take a, a moment, pause, and go to this bit.ly, excuse me, and then open that up in a new tab. But also please grab a whiteboard and a marker or a pen and a pencil, and we're going to break down the performance expectation like we always do in class. So take a minute right here, pause the video, and pull together those resources. Okay, now that we are back and moving on, we're going to first look at that SEP. What is it that we're expected to be able to do? If you need to pause and go back and look at the performance expectation, you can. But here is our list of items that we are going to be choosing from for the SEP. So take a second and think, what could it be? What do you think the SEP for this performance expectation is going to be? Okay, so if you did well on that, you would know that we're going to be developing a model to describe. Awesome. Describe what? Which brings us to the DCI. So for the DCI, we're going to give you a moment again to find out what the DCI is, read it for this performance expectation. And please also read the clarifying statements that come below it in that little drop-down menu, because likely that's where the question will come from that you're going to be expected to answer. So take a moment and read through your DCI. All right, I know that one takes a little bit longer, so we are back again now and ready to move on to our final step. But on this one, think first. This one should be pretty easy if you go back and read the performance expectation, or in all honesty, most of it's right here that you would need now. By reading through that DCI, you should be easily able to pull that cross-cutting concept out. So after you make some intelligent choices and justifications, look for the actual answer and then see what you can find. So what is our theme? What is that cross-cutting concept? What could it be? So take a look at this little list right here and see if you can figure out which one we are most likely going to be using. Now, again, we could always use more than one, but which one does the government want us to use? That one should have been pretty quick, so we are ready to kind of close things up now. So now I know that I am going to be developing a model so that I can show how matter and energy are cycling among living and non-living parts of an ecosystem, basically a food web. We're going to be looking at cycling of how energy goes from the sun to the plants to the things that eat the plants to ultimately through us and then eventually back into the soil again, focusing on energy and matter, which was pretty straightforward. So if you can, pause the video, read through this entire thing, and see if you can't kind of really understand where it is we're going and why we are going there. So since I'm about to run out of time, today's password is